Happy Hump Day, YouTube. It's your boy X-Man1991 coming to you back again with another video. First thing I want to say is I want to thank you guys for helping me reach 800 subscribers. Now I'm at 801. 199 more to go, and I'm at 1K. Are you guys ready for me to reveal another list? I'm here to reveal my top 20 albums of 1995. All these albums that are on my list, including my honorable mentions, are all turning 30 years old this year. I know I can't wait to celebrate 30 years of these albums. Before I get to the actual list, here are my honorable mentions. I have a lot of honorable mentions. The Friday soundtrack, the Batman Forever soundtrack, Elliott Smith's debut self-titled album, Green Day Insomniac, Radiohead The Bends, the Dangerous Minds soundtrack, PJ Harvey To Bring You My Love, Junior Mafia Conspiracy, E40 in a Major Way, Poverty's Paradise by Naughty by Nature, Master Ace Incorporated's album. Let me know in the comments down below what's the name of that album. Mac 10's debut self-titled album. And Michael Jackson, History, Past, Present, and Future, Book 1. The two albums that are disqualified for being on my list is Robert Kelly's second album and Mystical, Mind of Mystical. Both good albums, but they're not on my list. And you know why. Both Robert Kelly and Mystical are sick bastards. But people always say you gotta separate the art from the artist. But they're not on my list. Good albums, but they're both disqualified for being on my list. Now let's get to the actual list. Number 20, D'Angelo, Brown Sugar. I want some of your brown sugar, sugar. I want some of your brown sugar, sugar. Of course, I had to put this at number 20. This is D'Angelo's only album to be released in the 90s. He would not release another album until 2000 and then another one until 2014. This was released on the 4th of July of 1995. It has bangers like Cruisin', Brown Sugar, and Lady. My first R&B album on this list. Big ups to D'Angelo. Number 19, another R&B album, Adina Howard, Do You Wanna Ride? Also her debut album that was released in 95, which will be 30 on February 28th. It has that one banger, Freak Like Me. This was her only album to be released in the 90s as well. Her second album was supposed to be released in 97, but it got shelved. Her second album will not be released until 2004. This album was certified gold on June 21st. Number 18, Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. This album hit number 1 on the Billboard 200 and was certified 17 times platinum. It went double diamond. The first Canadian artist to ever go diamond. This is actually a good album by Alanis Morissette. This is her third album. Number 17, Bjork, Post. This album was continuing the same style from her first album debut. This hit number 1 in Ireland, number 2 in the UK, and number 32 in the United States. This album was also certified gold. It was a good album. no doubt about it. Number 16, Daydream by Mariah Carey. This was a follow up from her successful album Music Box and that Christmas album as well by Mariah. Of course, Fantasy is on this album, not the remix, the original. You Will Always Be My Baby is on that album. And that song she did with Boyz II Men, One Sweet Day. This is a good album by Mariah. Number 15, Faith Evans, Faith. The first R&B artist from Bad Boy to release an album under that label, and the third to release an album after Biggie and Craig Mack. This album that has that song, You Used to Love Me. I definitely like this album by Faith Evans. Number 14, Montel Jordan. This Is How We Do It. The most successful hit on that album, as well as Daddy's Home and Some for the Honeys. I know that song, Some from the Honeys, because of The Nutty Professor. He performed that song and This Is How We Do It on The Nutty Professor. This album will be 30 on April 4th, the day before my sister turns 32. Number 13, The Pharcyde, Le Cabin, California. This is the album that has that song, Running. One of my favorite West Coast albums of that year. I'm just glad I have it on this list. Number 12, Goodie Mob, Soul Food. Come and get your soul food. Good old fashioned soul food. I know Juggalo Jigsaw Reaction loves that song by Goodie Mob. Cell Therapy was the first song on that album, the first single before Soul Food. Of course, you have guest appearances on the album such as Outkast, of course. This album will be 30 on November the 7th. Number 11, E1999 Internal by Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. Another album that will be 30 during the summer of this year. Of course, this album that has that song First of the Month, Thuggish Ruggish Bone, and of course, The Crossroads, which was a dedication to Eazy-E. Did y'all know Eazy-E was Bone Thugs-n-Harmony's mentor? Yep. This album was nominated for Best Rap Album at the 1996 Grammys, but it lost to Poverty's Paradise by Naughty by Nature. But it's all good. Naughty by Nature definitely deserves a Grammy for Best Rap Album. But this is definitely a good album by Bone Thugs, definitely. Now my top 10 albums of 1995. Number 10, Coolio, Gangsta's Paradise. Of course, this has bangers like Ghetto Highlights, Gangsta's Paradise, Too Hot, and 1, 2, 3, 4, Something New. This album will also be 30 on November 7th. This sucks that Coolio will not be here to celebrate 30 years of this album because he is no longer with us. But we will definitely celebrate 30 years of this album to keep his legacy alive. Rest in peace to Coolio. Of course, Gangsta's Paradise was his most successful album after It Takes a Thief. Gangsta's Paradise is my favorite Coolio album. Rest in peace to Coolio. Number 9, Big L, Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous. This album will be 30 in the next 2 months on March 28th. His first and only album to be released in the 90s and his first and only album to be released during his lifetime. Of course, it has bangers like No Ends, No Skins, MVP, and Put It On. Sad that Big L will not be here to celebrate 30 years of this album because his life ended way too soon. Rest in peace to Big L. Number 8, LL Cool J, Mr. Smith. This album that has that song Hey Lover with Boyz II Men and the remix and the original of I Shot Ya. Definitely one of the best hip hop albums of 1995. I had to put it in my top 10. Number 7, KRS-One, self-titled album. This album that has that song MCs Act Like They Don't Know. Another one of the best hip hop albums of 1995. Big ups to KRS-One. I can't wait to celebrate 30 years of this album. Number 6, Old Dirty Bastard, Return of the 36 Chambers, the Dirty Version. Another album's turning 30 years old on March 28th. And the second member of Wu-Tang to release a solo album after Method Man. This is the album that has that songs Brooklyn Zoo and Shimmy Shimmy Y'all. Rest in peace to ODB. Now my top 5 albums of 1995. Number 5, GZA, Liquid Swords. The 4th member of Wu-Tang to release a solo album. It has those songs 4th Chamber and of course my favorite song of the album with Method Man, Shadowboxing. And this album will be 30 also on November 7th, the same day as Goody Mob Soul Food and Coolio, Gangsta's Paradise. Which Wu-Tang debut solo album do y'all think is the best? Let me know in the comments. But GZA Liquid Swords is definitely a good album, definitely. Number 4, another Wu-Tang solo album that was released in 95, Raekwon, Only Built for Cuban Links, aka The Purple Tape. Heaven and Hell, Ice Cream, Incarcerated Scarfaces, Verbal Intercourse, and Criminology. In my opinion, the best Wu-Tang solo debut album is this one, Raekwon, The Purple Tape, definitely. And it was released on Coolio's 32nd birthday, August 1st of 1995. It's definitely a classic. When it comes to albums in 1995, you got to put Raekwon, The Purple Tape in the top 5, definitely. Number 3, AZ, Do or Die. This album will be 30 years old on October the 10th, the day before Beanie Jean 94's 31st birthday. And it was released the same day Aeon Flux ended on MTV. Sugar Hill is still a banger 30 years later. This was a year after he made a guest appearance on Nas's album Illmatic and that song Life's a Bitch. Do y'all think I put this album way too high, or do you think it's fine where I put it at number 3? Let me know in the comments, is this album way too high or do I need to move it lower? Or are you okay with me putting it at number 3? To me, I think it's fine that I put this album in the top 3 because AZ is the most underrated rapper of all time next to Big L. which is why I have this album at number 3. Number 2, Mobb Deep the Infamous. Shook Ones Part 2, Give Up the Goods, Survival of the Fittest, Party Over, Temperatures Rising, Right Back at You, Eye for an Eye. I could keep going of all the songs that's on this album. Even though Hell on Earth is my favorite Mobb Deep album, people say Infamous is their best album. This will be 30 on April 25th, the day before Friday's 30th anniversary. You ain't a crook, son. You just a shook one. Shout out to Havoc, rest in peace to Prodigy. Now, my number 1 album of 1995. I think you all know what it is. Tupac, Me Against the World. It's no surprise. Y'all knew Tupac, Me Against the World was going to be my number 1. This album will be 30 on March 14th, the day before Mike Henry's 36th birthday. Me Against the World, Lord Knows, Old School, Fuck the World, Outlaws, Death Around the Corner, If I Die Tonight, So Many Tears, Temptations, Young Niggas, Heavy in the Game, Dear Mama, It Ain't Easy, and Can You Get Away. Hands down, Tupac's best album. His first album to hit number 1 and his first and only album that he released while he was incarcerated. And this was the first Tupac album that my dad bought. And this was the first hip hop album that I've listened to. Wow. And Tupac was 23 years old, going on 24 when he released his album. Now, 30 years later, he would have been 53, going on 54. And it sucks that he's not going to be here to celebrate 30 years of this album because he's no longer with us. Rest in peace to Tupac, hands down his best album. That wraps up my list, celebrating my list of my top 20 albums of 1995. The next list I'm going to reveal is my top 20 Nickelodeon shows of the 1990s. And I got more lists coming up. What do you guys think of my top 20 albums of 1995? Which which album in general would be your number 1 that was released in 95? Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell for my next list, and I'll catch you tomorrow celebrating 30 years of UPN launching on television. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. No more talk.